Hey guys, what's going on? Rob here with GRBM, and today we're talking 6 tips to manage your NYSIF policy. Now, for those of you that don't know, the New York State Insurance Fund is the company that I'm talking about. We commonly refer to them as NYSIF, NYSIF. Now, the reason I'm talking about how to avoid problems with them is many people at different times run into problems with the State Insurance Fund. So today we're going to talk about how to avoid those problems. The number one thing you can do to avoid any issues with the New York State Insurance Fund is don't try and pull anything over on them. If you try and pull a fast one on NYSIF, they're probably going to catch it and they're going to stick it to you. And in fact, they might even go back up to 3 years and do a re-audit. And because they're the largest workers' comp provider in the state of New York, they've seen every trick, every gimmick, really anything that you can think of to try and pull one over on them. They've seen it before and they're probably going to catch it. So once again, number one, don't try and pull anything over on the New York State Insurance Fund. That leads me to number 2, budget your insurance premium into your jobs. What does that mean? Well, at the end of the day, you should be able to have a good estimate on what your workers' comp cost is for every job that you do. For example, if you do a $10,000 bathroom remodel, you should have a good understanding of how much workers' comp premium you're going to owe for that job. Now, sticking with that same trend, our next tip involves software. We highly recommend that you use an accounting software to track and manage both your payroll and your expenses. At the end of the day, trying to keep track of it in a paper journal, or something similar is just inefficient in 2018. Using something like QuickBooks, you pay $10 a month. With payroll, it's going to be a little bit more than that, but it's still very affordable for you to manage your overall financial health in a very simplified manner, so that when audit time rolls around, all you have to do is click, and you've got everything you need. Another reason it's really important to have accounting software is recently the New York State Insurance Fund started mandating at audit time that they have a good number of your invoices for the jobs you actually performed during the policy period. So if you have nothing but a handwritten estimate that you gave one of your customers, that's not really going to fly with the State Insurance Fund. And by not really going to fly, I mean they're probably going to then hit you with an estimated audit, and that really sucks. Ask any of your friends that have experienced something like that. They usually do a 25% surcharge, which on construction premiums can be pretty hefty. Now, our 4th tip for managing your NYSIF policy is a little bit different. But when it comes down to it, using an integrated payroll service like Heartland, or I think there are a couple other ones that integrate, but at the end of the day, using an integrated payroll provider will help you avoid so many problems. Your workers' comp is automatically budgeted and paid for every single week, or 2 weeks if you use a 2-week pay period. But regardless, it's all integrated. There's no big surprise come audit time or anything like that. Everything's built in, ready to go, no surprises. So for that reason, we highly recommend you use an integrated payroll provider for your NYSIF policy. If you have more questions about that, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to explain that a little more, but for all intents and purposes, an integrated payroll solution with your NYSIF policy will help you tremendously. Even if you use an integrated payroll provider, you could still end up with a big audit surprise if you don't follow our next tip. And that is monitoring your subcontractors extremely careful. Your subcontractors will, I take that back. Not maybe your subcontractors, but we've seen many subcontractors perform all sorts of shenanigans when it comes time to provide their proof of insurance. And that it's sadly pathetic. It's almost my dog ate my homework sort of level. It's terrible. But all that to say, before you cut any of your subcontractors a check, you need to make sure they have valid New York State workers' comp. Now, that does not mean it has to come from the New York State Insurance Fund, but they do need to be an authorized New York workers' comp provider. What that means is on the actual policy, it needs to say in Section 3A, New York State. If it does not, and they're performing work for you, you are going to end up paying for them. Now, there is a caveat to that. If they work exclusively in another state for you and you can prove that, this goes back to the invoices, you're gonna need an invoice. I'm not gonna get super deep into that, but that is the one caveat. If that subcontractor is exclusively working for you in a state other than New York, you can get away with them not having New York workers' comp. But 9 times out of 10, that's not gonna work out for you because they did in fact perform work for you in the state of New York. So make sure all of your subcontractors have New York workers' comp insurance. So that leads us to our final point to help you manage your NYSIF policy, and that is to prepare and plan for your workers' comp audit well in advance. The last thing you want to do is try and throw everything together in that last day before your audit, because you're going to miss a whole bunch of things, and then the auditor's going to be unhappy, and when the auditor's unhappy, you get a big bill. That's just the way it works. Sorry. They have a tremendous amount of power with what they approve, don't approve, etc. Keeping the auditor happy, giving them a nice, clean, easy to read presentation of your audit information will help you tremendously. Now, when it comes time to actually preparing, there's really not that many things that you need for your audit. Number one, you need a copy of a payroll report. Now that is from either your payroll provider or QuickBooks. In addition, you're going to want your New York State 45s. Then you're going to want your profit and loss statement, once again from QuickBooks, very easy. In addition, you're going to want your last completed corporate tax return. Then you're going to want a subcontractor report. Once again from QuickBooks, click, click, really easy. Now, to go with your subcontractor report, you are going to want the certificates to line up with every single sub that you used. But if you've been staying on top of that throughout the year, really shouldn't be that big of a deal. And the last thing that they're going to want to see is, once again, a selection of your invoices. So if you are a general contractor and you do maybe some roofing, but then you also do some kitchen and bathroom models, they're going to want to see some invoices showing all of the classifications that you have on your policy. So if you self-perform some painting, they're going to want to see some painting jobs. If you self-perform some roofing, they're going to want to see some roofing jobs. It's really not that complicated, but you do need to provide that information. Once again, otherwise they're going to really stick it to you, and you don't want that. So bottom line, working with NYSIF is really a must for New York State contractors, but with our tips, you should be able to manage your policy without too many bumps in the road. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still going to be problems, there's still going to be issues on occasion, but if you follow our tips and at the end of the day, you really just play by the rules, you're going to be in good shape. Now, at the end of the day, if you're having problems with the New York State Insurance Fund, or maybe you are currently looking for workers' comp and you think you might need to work with the New York State Insurance Fund, feel free to hit the button below, reach out. I'm happy to chat with you either way, see what I can do to help you. Take it easy, guys.